Here we go, Muhammad Zekrallah 82. Okay, well, time for a Reti style opening. D4, okay, I can play the Reti gambit. And he just defends. I think that's a respectable way to play. So I guess I'm going with the fianchetto here. And he takes. So, okay, he's got the bishop open on this diagonal, surrounding up with the knight is not so great. So let's go ahead and do the check and grab the pawn back. Get the pawn back. So we have a normal position, I think. I can play d4 here for a claim of the center, or go with d3 and e4 maybe. Anyway, opening up a diagonal for this dark squared bishop seems like a good idea. The knight can come out, but maybe not right away because it does block the retreat of the queen. Let's see what black plays here. Ah, he pins the d-pawn. Pretty interesting way to play, but I'm going to castle anyway. That pawn is defended by bishop and knight, so castling is not a problem. My queen can drop back to c2 if it gets attacked. Okay, so now I want to go d4 or d3. What's better? Knight's probably going to come out to c3. He might trade. I think I can get away with d4, and I think that's maybe a little better. If knight to c3 and he trades, you know, I'll take back with a pawn, and that defends that d-pawn. But maybe I'll develop my bishop first, because at some point I may need to play e3 to defend the d-pawn. Let's see, can he immediately attack it? He's got two attackers, and I've got two defenders. And he doesn't have a way to increase the pressure right away. I suppose he might think about moves like e4, but that just loses a pawn. e5. What else could he play here? Can't really move the knight because it's defending the bishop. So it puts the rook behind the e-pawn. So let's get this bishop out. Let's think, though. If he kicks it, do I want to trade? Bring the queen out? And then push the e-pawn forward? That looks like a reasonable way to play, actually, to me. To me, that seems reasonable. And if he doesn't kick it, then I'll just leave the pin there and see if it gets annoying at some point. Yeah, so he decides to pin it. Okay, so still we have two attackers here. I can go e4 immediately. Thinking about e5. Or d5. Yeah, let's go e4 immediately. If he puts more pressure on the pawn, he can do it now with the rook. I can place my rook on d1. The e-pawn is not defended at all, but it's not under attack at all, and the bishop is a latent defender on this diagonal. And knight to c3 is still a way to develop this knight. His knight is still a little bit tied down defending the bishop. But probably knight c3 is my next move. Yeah, okay, so he gets his bishop out of trouble. Now the knight is free to move. Maybe his bishop is going to reposition itself to b6, put more pressure on that pawn. But I am thinking about just pushing that d-pawn forward. So let's get the knight there. to support that push. Now my rooks can go to C, D, or E files. Can't really say which is better. E5, you know, kicks the queen but gives up a square on D5 that he might use, say knight E7 to D5. So E5 doesn't look so attractive. E5 doesn't look so attractive. D5, he takes, I take, the knight has to move. Actually, yeah, maybe there was a tactic there. Okay, but he goes with E5. So that will fix the structure in the center, I think. If I take, takes with the knight, I take, he takes, and he's got pressure on that E-pawn. So why don't I just push? And see where his knight goes. Anyway, yeah, if we look back in the game at the point when, before he moved his bishop, maybe there was an opportunity for me to push the pawn, chase his knight away, and grab the bishop. I don't know. So I was thinking I should trade here. Take, he takes, this knight has to move. The knight could go to E2, and then he can defend the pawn with bishop to B6. And I can pile up with the rook move. It seems like it seems to me like I'm getting some pressure. Now, where should the knight go? Should it go to B5? Looking at the C pawn and this pawn. Maybe that's the most active way to play it. I guess he's got pressure on my B pawn along this diagonal here. I have the move B4 with tempo hitting his bishop. But his bishop might move immediately to B6. I don't know, there's two pawns hanging. I guess he has to decide which one he wants to defend. Bishop B6 defends the D pawn here, and I can grab the C pawn. I don't see that he can really exploit that knight there. If he puts pressure on it from the side, I just retreat, and he doesn't have a way to get this bishop out with tempo to put a rook to pin the knight. Bishop, where can that bishop go? Here. See these squares. This square is also available, but doesn't hit anything. Or this square. Okay. Any other ideas besides bishop b6? He can play c. He can play c6. Pawn to c6 is hitting my knight, hitting this pawn. I could take. Takes back. But at the end, I can still take on d4. So maybe he's just having trouble figuring out what the best response is. Okay, he brings his queen over. So what does that do? That looks at the b pawn. But then his bishop is trapped, right? He's trying too hard to save everything, looks like. Because what does he do here? He could attack my knight. He does attack my knight. Okay. But if I take his bishop and hit his queen, he takes my knight, hits my queen. I take his queen, he takes my queen. I take here. But if I just move the knight away, can't he... if I move the knight away, then he can take this pawn. That's pretty clever. So maybe the Trail of Destruction is a better way to play it. Let's think about this. So knight takes pawn, queen or bishop takes pawn is just a trade. Knight takes this pawn, he just takes it, that's covered. So pawn takes bishop, pawn takes knight. And it's my move. Or pawn takes bishop, queen takes knight, I guess. But after pawn takes bishop, queen takes knight, I can take the c-pawn. So I think starting that way is the best way, and then we'll see how he responds. Yeah, queen takes knight. So I can take here. And this pawn is still a little bit loose, so I think I came out of this with a pawn. Interesting play. So he actually calculated a pretty nice line there, because I was thinking he was just losing a piece, but in fact he managed to hold on to his pieces, gave up one pawn, but my pawn is kind of messed up. I have these two against these two, one against two, so yeah, so this is my extra pawn over here. I need to gang up on this d-pawn and round it up, and then I'll have these two pawns in the center against his. He'll probably get this pawn in the long run. So he'll have 2-1 over here, and I'll have 2 in the center. So I'll be a pawn up. And I need to try and push those center pawns forward, I guess. It's my strategy from here. Yeah, he's a little bit tied up, too. I wonder if I could just immediately push the d-pawn. Now I think I need to centralize a rook here. Put a rook on d1. Could I push the e-pawn, though? So the queen is defending e5, and the bishop is defending d5. So if I push to e5. So pawn to e5, and he brings a rook over here to hit my queen. Well, he's going to bring a rook over here to hit my queen anyway. The question is, where does the queen want to go? I could start moving back immediately. I could go here. This attacks his pawn, and leaves my pawns all set and gets my queen out of trouble. And if he trades, then, I just have this extra pawn. I should be good. And if he doesn't trade, then I was going to take this d-pawn. So let's round this guy up. And just push those pawns through in the center. He can defend that. Let's not be too hasty. First I'll defend the center. And I can kick this bishop. I also have bishop to f1 to grab that pawn, but I was thinking this might be better, because when the bishop goes there, I can play rook here. I guess he's going to, I guess if I play the rook here, he's going to go to b3 and hit my rook. So, okay, let's just grab the pawn this way then. Okay, if I take first. Now let's defend the b pawn for a bit. Okay, and we'll take here. So I am 2 pawns up at the moment, but he's activating his rooks. Not entirely clear to me how this is going to work out. So if I go here, for example, he has rook to c2 check, and I'll go here, he can grab that pawn. So maybe I will drop back first to guard the second rank. Now I want to get my king in and then start these pawns going in the center. And okay, let's defend that guy. If I pushed it forward first, he could put his rook behind it, which would be very annoying. But still, I want to bring my king over and start these pawns going in the center. Okay, king comes up. Maybe rook b3 is a good idea. Ah, that's interesting. So if I attack this pawn, it's just leave those pawns as they are. And maybe I should have taken a moment to push my pawn forward so that they didn't get artificially isolated like this. But okay, I have to defend. Let's defend this way. Yeah, maybe I'm losing the thread here a little bit. He can just take the pawn. So I probably should have grabbed his rook first. Yeah, okay, so let's trade here then. And see how he wants to take. He takes with the rook. Okay, so let's bring my rook up. My king up, rather. And try and get these pawns going in the center. Okay, so over here, I guess. So what's the best way to play this? If he ever brings that, if he ever brings the b pawn forward, then this square opens up on c6 for my rook. I want to play rook c3 to c6 to drive his king back, but it's hard in this situation with my rook tied down. And if I bring my king any closer, he can take the d pawn. Kind of annoying. Or my e pawn, I guess that is the e pawn. So yeah, he played a good endgame here. Made a mistake in this portion over here. This kind of got me a little bit tied up, but I guess I can try and run him out of moves. So he's holding on to everything so far. I can try and create some kind of a Zugzwang position. Yeah, I was worried about that one. I go check and his king comes forward. Gives me a passed pawn, but this pawn is weak. But what else can I do? He is threatening to take there. So I don't see anything else. That comes with check. Let's see, he's got a check here with his rook. I'll drive my king all the way to f3. Let's Let's see, is he going to take squares away from my king here? I just got away from the check. So I'm just going to try and sit on this position at the moment. He needs to, yeah. So he's still playing on. So I can play with my rook here then. He is letting me activate my rook. He takes, I get a check. I don't see it. I think I'm just playing for a loss if I push too hard there. So I'm just sitting on the position, and if he gets active, I'll try and exploit it in some way. Yeah, like that. So I can go here. If he wants to play the endgame, isn't this good for me? Like, yeah, it's a winning endgame, right? So yeah, he had a draw. He should have just repeated moves. I can get a queen here, and let's see, what's the simplest way to win this? Take here. Yeah, he pushes a pawn, I take there, and then I take this pawn, and I can win. So, yeah, he played a good endgame, fought all the way back to a draw, and then tried too hard to win. Interesting game. I will upload this, and see you guys later. Bye.